When application completion rates drop, something is off. Students aren't getting the support they need, and that's affecting your numbers. Enter Element 451's AI assistants. They step in where students struggle, offering real-time answers and advice, guiding them through every step. Learn how AI assistants can boost your enrollment outcomes. Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to The Application, a podcast focused on actionable takeaways to help you level up your marketing and enrollment management game. I'm your host, Dr. Allison Turcio, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment and Marketing at Siena College. Join me every Tuesday for discussions with some of the best minds in higher ed marketing and enrollment management. The Application is part of the Enrollify network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal faves linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. How are prospective students researching colleges in 2024 and 2025? What's changing in their decision-making process? That's today's topic with Jason Keath, a true pioneer in digital advertising and an expert in social and performance marketing. Jason co-founded Social Fresh and is also a strategist at Convince and Convert, leading research into Gen Z's higher ed choices. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk through some of this data.
I think it's top of mind for everybody. We all want to have a better understanding of what prospective students are thinking about, what's driving their decision making. So let's chat. I'd love to know what insights from your research should enrollment marketers know about in how the students are beginning their college search.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I think the clear pattern that we saw both in the data and the open-ended kind of verbatim answers were students are starting with search, they're moving on to the school websites, and then they are researching kind of more deeply on social media. I think it's fascinating that Gen Z still is utilizing Google, utilizing school websites. These traditional digital channels are still very important. But when it comes to kind of the deeper and persuasive research, they're really leaning on social media, which also not a surprise. But that's really, especially in the open-ended answers, we got over 1,400 students surveyed. There's a lot of validation and a lot more time being spent on their college decisions on social media, especially video social media. So we see that in the data. We see that in the open-ended questions. One of my favorite open-ended answers that we got from a student named Isabella from Florida. She was 17, looking for a 4-year public or private school. Her most trusted sources of information are Reddit and YouTube. She started with search. She moved on to university websites, and then she, quote, used YouTube. YouTube videos from other students were the most helpful in narrowing down her decision. And those are her words. And we saw that repeated over and over, both in the data and the open-ended answers from these students. I think that pattern is very useful for schools to kind of revisit.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think video tends to be a place, even institutional side, not user-generated, where we're often understaffed or under-resourced at our schools. And then what we really need to start thinking about then is a strategy around how we're getting students to put up content about their experience at our schools, which is a whole other animal, right?
Yeah, when I work with a college or university, the number one, transition that we're looking to help them with typically is skilling up in video production, not just in kind of the hardware and appearing on screen, but in the process, and especially in generating more UGC or more student generated video. Because I mean, in the data, students want to hear from other students. They want to hear from students like them. And when they're searching on YouTube or searching on TikTok or Instagram for kind of this video content, they're not searching for the university. They're searching for other students that were ideally organically creating content about the university, about their experience with that school. So the more a university can get better at video, but also get better at that student generated video and encouraging it and helping it get produced in a strategic way is very important.
Well, it sounds to me too that it's a form of word of mouth. If they're organically producing videos about their experience at a particular institution, that's really word of mouth. So we also need to be attending in a strategic way to the student experience itself. It needs to be worthy of creating content around so that can even has a chance of happening organically, right?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the product team and the marketing team in a lot of companies in every industry are always an interesting discussion that happens between them, right? Like if the product isn't good enough. But I think delivering on the student experience, and I think if you look at the research data, we actually asked what topics students want to hear more about. And I think that speaks to what schools need to make sure they're delivering on. Specifically, the biggest gaps were financial aid. That was the number one gap where universities and colleges are not producing a lot of content, at least on social media, that these students are seeing around financial aid, student housing, job placement and internship placement, and study abroad. And I think, all of those speak to kind of this campus student life. Like, what is my life going to be like on college? What are the big kind of school life decisions I'm making that impact me long term or impact my campus experience and then impact me long term? And I think there's some great insights there of how campuses can make sure they're delivering on that front.
Yeah, I think it's human nature to want to feel like you have a really clear picture of how something's going to go. But I think this generation, it's even more so. I talk to students here and there, and they want to know what the parking situation is going to be at the restaurant that you're going to go to. It feels like they almost want to be able to really picture in their heads. They don't love the unknowns, right? So we have to fill in those unknowns for them a bit so that they can make this decision. But let's circle back to the starting points, right? So you said the starting points are still, let's look for it on Google. Let's go to college websites. So what do we need to be thinking about? What, as enrollment marketers, what do enrollment marketers need to be doing to optimize those channels for today's prospective students?
Yeah, I mean, number one is, literally going in and doing some of these most common searches and seeing what web page, what page on your website these students are showing up on. They're going to show up on your homepage more than anything else. Not every school has like an enrollment as a major issue or a major goal. Some schools are lucky to have great numbers there. But for the school, if enrollment, and I think most schools enrollment is a big goal. If enrollment is a large goal, then it should be front and center on your homepage. The student prospect audience knows the least. They have the largest knowledge gap about your institution compared to any other audience that's landing on your website. So I advise and recommend schools to make their homepage for the student prospect. Purdue is one of my favorite examples. If you go to Purdue's website, purdue.edu, especially on mobile, and you should test your site, test any competitor sites. If you're a prospective student landing on that site, are there clear calls to action that align with your college decisions? And you'll see on Purdue's website, they have usually somewhere between 4 to 6 buttons in a list, and all of them are those college choice decisions. Where am I going to live on campus? What is my major going to be? What is financial aid? Some of those topics that we actually mentioned in the data, they adjust that seasonally. And I think in general, especially on mobile, making it very easy for them to click through to get quick answers, in-depth answers to those decision questions is pretty important for your website strategy.
Yeah, I just logged on and took a look myself because it's been some time since I've been on Purdue's website. And right now, the quick links are apply now, find your major, check tuition and costs, and schedule a visit. So especially with the cost piece and the major piece, they're addressing, like, we know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Here it is right here. They're making it easy. They're not making anyone figure out the structural navigation of the website to go find the program that they're interested, for instance, right? They're putting it really does speak directly to the prospective student. And even at the top, they have a link for Become a Student, which is interesting because I know at Purdue they have all different types of students, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess when I click there, I get more in-depth information if I'm international students or a transfer. And then they have Life at Purdue. Yeah, this is definitely an example worth sharing.
It's one of the best I've seen, and I would just tell every higher ed marketer, pull up your campus website on your phone, look at the mobile experience, and pretend you're a prospective student and trying to get answers, and just count the clicks and see how many clicks you have to get through to get that information.
Watch someone do it yourself and count it. I think those are really great user experience tests to be running all the time, really. I want to go back to YouTube because YouTube, in the video content is so important. They trust it, especially when it's other students. But of course, there's opportunity for the institution on their YouTube channel, right? Because you were talking about how on social media, there's gaps. Financial aid struck me because when you were talking about social media, it doesn't feel like natural to talk about financial aid necessarily on social media, which might be why there's that gap. So what should we be doing on our owned YouTube channels to leverage it effectively?
Yeah, I mean, so UGC, that's the number one answer to a lot of these strategy questions. For schools, that's student-generated content. Topic-wise, I mentioned some of those. I mean, one of the things I recommend is what I call playlist content. So this is content that's geared towards YouTube search or search anywhere. You can do that on TikTok. You can pin content on Instagram for this. But content that's literally dedicated to answering, how do I apply for financial aid? Where am I going to live on campus? What's the job placement scenario? How can I get a better job coming up? Like answering those specific questions that we've already touched on and putting them in a playlist. So it's not necessarily there for your vanity engagement metrics. And I mean, engagement is very important, but it's not there for those big numbers. It's there for search. It's there for the students that are interested, that have kind of discovered your school already. They're in the middle or the bottom of their funnel of their kind of student customer journey. And they're looking to confirm, they're looking to really do deeper research. And I think that type of playlist content, putting them together in a row so they're easier to engage them for a longer time period, is a really low-hanging opportunity. And that's both in short form video, on YouTube Shorts, as well as kind of longer format videos on the traditional YouTube. Purdue does this well. Boston University has done this to an extent. I've seen a few campuses do this, but it's a simple thing, but it doesn't really align with a lot of the KPIs or goals or the way marketing teams are measuring success today. But it does align well with the way students are researching schools.
I love that you keep mentioning Purdue. You don't even realize this, Jason, but a couple episodes from now, I've got people from Purdue Brand Studio coming on the podcast to talk about how they're actually doing all of this, because they do this. They have this great balance between brand and enrollment marketing at Purdue. They really know how to strike that balance. So that'll be a great conversation. And I hope you're enjoying this conversation if you're listening so far as well. If you find these insights valuable, a quick favor I'd love to ask of you: help us grow and advance our industry by recommending the application to a colleague or friend who's passionate about our industry. Take a moment to leave us a review where you're listening right now. It's one of the best ways to help more enrollment pros discover these conversations. Together, we can share ideas, spark innovation, and make a real impact. Let's dive into some more actionable insights with Jason. When students are trusting that peer-like content, we've already broached this subject, but let's get into it a little bit deeper. They're looking for those sort of student influencers versus the official channels. What do we as enrollment marketers need to do then to integrate authentic student voices into our campaigns, into our content, to be able to put it front and center?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a clear crawl, walk, run kind of step process here. I think at a minimum, social listening is very important. So just what are the students at your campus already posting? What are the organic videos they're posting on TikTok, on YouTube? You'll see dorm tour videos are pretty popular, and it's a trend you can find on most campuses. So you can find those creators. I would look for that content, look for the good examples that you feel like you could use, spotlight them, amplify them, show them to other students. Once students see a campus is interested in amplifying creator content from their students, you'll see more of it, or you'll see more students interested in kind of working with the marketing team or reaching out or producing that type of content. So you're doing social listening to model the type of content you want to see more of. The second step, the run step, would be to start asking for it, just clearly an invitation, having a website or having a pinned Instagram story or a link in bio where students can see, oh, the school wants to see more content from the students about how it is to live on campus, about how you just decided your major, et cetera, et cetera. Literally asking for it, having some type of formalized request out there, and with examples of what you're looking for. And then the run piece of that, of the crawl, walk, run, would be having a formalized student creator group. And there are dozens of ways to do this. There's a lot of different methods. One of the extensions of the research we did right now is I'm actually interviewing a lot of campuses that are doing this in different ways and trying to establish a more kind of refined best practice around this. But you want to provide some type of solid incentive, some type of training, and some type of recruitment to help students kind of join, learn, and produce content for you. Some type of repeatable source of student generated content that you can depend on, that you can build and grow and refine. That's going to bring kind of the organic style of what student content looks like, as well as that authenticity. And I think, the marketing team is responsible for bringing the research and the professionalism and like a little bit of resources to it. But yes, social listening, actually asking for and incentivizing student generated content, and then formalizing it into a some type of more professional program that they can participate in.
How do we convince students to do this with us? What's in it for them, do you think?
I mean, so it's a great question. I think, paying them honestly is the best way, whether it's like $100 a video. I know that's not possible for every team. The second, or just as useful and positive incentive, is giving them school credit. I know that's also difficult. The other two ways, I think, is making it a part of an existing program. If you have like a dean's program or some type of club or college that can encourage students to participate, the lowest hanging fruit for that is saying you're going to provide training and help them kind of learn to be better creators. And additionally, just giving them some type of recognition for kind of being accepted into a program like this. I think all four of those, recognition, training, monetary incentive, and school credit incentive, those four and some combination of those are probably what you're looking for. But literally paying creators is, what will get most of them. It may not be what the full incentive package that you need long-term to make a sustainable and valuable program, but that's a lever to think through. But I think finding the right partnerships on campus to kind of filter to students that are already interested in representing the campus well, and are already creators in some light and want to continue to become better creators. I mean, over 50, as high as 60% of Gen Z students today want to be creators of some sort, right? So there's no shortage.
I've got a 10-year-old, so I know, Jason.
Exactly. Like I think they're starting to be born with a video camera, with a smartphone facing them, right? It's part of the generation. So there's no shortage of talent to create the content. You just have to, again, be that professional, supportive voice that gives them some type of worthwhile incentive.
Well, and I agree with you. And I think that's the moment where we become more comfortable and willing to then promote it to our audiences, right? So I think about things like what we do for prospect cultivation, right? We're trying to get a prospect interested. And how many schools right now would link to a student's TikTok video and not our own?
Yeah.
Not a lot, but it's sounding like linking to the student TikTok, that's the way to go, right? And so we have to be thinking about if we can get to a place where we're then infusing the students' work and the student-driven content into our other channels that we're using for marketing, right? That's really where it gets, but we have to get to that place where it's professional enough, but also authentic enough so that it works both ways in a way.
Yeah, I mean, you get to a specific tactical point here, which is where does this content get posted? Almost every student creator program you see at schools is posting on the brand channel. I'm starting to see a little bit where they are posting on student channels, which I think both are useful, but I would do both, and most schools aren't. Meaning, we bring a new student creator into whatever our student creator group is. We post their content once it's approved onto our brand channel, whether it's the main channel or the enrollment channel. But we also either encourage them to post it on their personal channel, or you can require them to start a new student channel that's just for this type of content as part of the program. I think you have to get the right transparency around that, and this is a student that's a part of our student creator program, whatever the language and copy that you need for your institution to feel comfortable with that process. But I think when students are looking for this content, they want to land on a student account. They prefer that. They'll land on the university and college accounts. But if you can get them to land on student accounts, I think it is more authentic, and it does accomplish the ultimate goal more successfully.
Do you think that the university-owned social profiles end up then with a lot of reposts in what you're describing? Is there a lot of reposts from the student personal accounts or the student-specific, creator account that gets done? And so, I don't know, maybe 25%, half of the content that's actually going up on the institutional channel is actually a repost from something they've done on one of those profiles.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think you have to really overthink it. It can be a repost. Yeah. You can just post it without saying it's a repost. I would always tag creators when they want to be tagged, or that option is available. I'm also a performance marketer, right? So I do a lot of strategy and direct work with brands, producing video social ads and advising on the creative strategy. And the number one type of ad that works in almost every industry I work in today is UGC video ads. And when you're producing those ads, you're not like tagging the creators. You're looking for creators that can produce really authentic, entertaining videos that get the right message through. I mean, you want to be transparent with the creators you're working with, so you don't want them to kind of be unaware of how the content's going to be used. But whatever works for your strategy, there's no real wrong way to do it, as long as everybody's aware of the process going in. So it can be repost, especially on TikTok. That's something that's very easy to do. But making it look like the organic content that is typically going to be found on the university channels is also fine. It's just transparency. Having a process that works for you is the most important thing, and getting the content that lands with these Gen Z students is the priority.
We've covered website, we've covered social media. I want to talk about email marketing before we wrap up as well, because email marketing is such a big piece of what we do in enrollment marketing. What did the research tell you about email and students?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, number one, it is the number one preferred way students want to hear from universities. And it's also the number one most frequented channel by Gen Z. Now, they're not spending hours and hours in their email accounts like they're spending on their TikTok feeds or YouTube, but they are checking it a lot, which I think is surprising to people. Email is still a very high frequency channel. So I think the investment is there. Also, marketers are pulling back on their investments on email. When we ask marketers what they're investing in channel-wise today versus in 2 years, email was the one that had the biggest pullback of any channel. I think it's a very mature channel, so that doesn't mean they're investing in it less. It could be efficiencies. It could be they've kind of perfected that. But I would just emphasize that I think email is really good middle of the funnel tool for student prospects. It's a good tool that let's say you get them on a TikTok or YouTube video playlist, pointing them to some type of email follow-up will allow you to increase the playthrough time, the playlist kind of completion rate that you have, getting them come back to these videos, come back to answering the right questions. And I think email that's going to feature, I think the bar is much higher today for email. So higher quality stories that are featuring students, that are bringing them into deeper video storytelling, I think are very important. So making sure you're the same strategy of getting them into a playlist on TikTok or a playlist on YouTube, I would think about email like that. It doesn't mean sending them 10 videos in the first email you get, but incorporating video and bringing them through a journey of answering the right questions along the way. Even if you don't have the video content today, making sure you have student storytelling incorporated there.
That's great. And I think a way that you can better embed video, not embed because you can't watch it native in email, but I'm gonna give a shout out to Bart Kaler. When I get emails from Bart about a video, it's a GIF of him starting to talk about. It's like a GIF clip of it. And I think that testing that is probably worth testing in our enrollment marketing and email marketing efforts. Like, how can we, especially if you had a student in that GIF, I think that students are more likely, they're seeing, okay, what I'm going to get from this video is not something overly produced by the institution. It feels really real and engaging and authentic. And so we, rather than try to convince them, hey, there's real stuff over here from these students, showing them there might be a benefit there.
Yeah, I think, it's the same strategy of looking at what works in YouTube thumbnails, featuring the right person, the right message, having a play button, making it animated. All of these are important to encourage engagement with that type of content.
All right, Jason, last question. If you could advise enrollment marketers to focus on one strategic area in 2025, what would it be?
I mean, it has to be YouTube. The data shows YouTube is the most trusted of all social channels, and it's like head and shoulders amongst all the other video social channels and everything else. The combination of student-generated content, short-form video on YouTube, both in shorts and longer format, I think investing in that playlist type of content would be the number one strategy if you're not already invested in it, or doubling down on it. That's my recommendation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. There's been so many insights that we can use and honestly take straight back to our teams. I made a note as you were talking, need team to listen to this episode as soon as it comes out. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen the report, we'll put, I assume, Allison, we can put it in the show notes. But
yes, in the show notes.
You can Google Convince and Convert Higher Ed Report. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm doing a ton of follow-up calls with people just to see how this compares to what they're doing kind of on the ground, so we can keep continuing this research and keep finding good insights for you.
Awesome. And to our listeners, if you're looking for the latest trends shaping higher ed marketing, don't miss that full report. It's a must read. And as always, subscribe to the application for more expert insights and actionable strategies. And we'll see you next time.
The application is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed tech shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea, and they feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Day Kibbolds, Jeremy Tiers, and so many other of your favorite higher ed leaders. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.